Hi everybody, welcome to March Supper Club. We hope you're having a good time. We want to start with a commercial. We're going to do something kind of interesting this year for Lent. We've always done a Lenten study, but this year we're going to do something at the church, and it's a DVD program, which is a little unusual for us. Myself and Russ Wayner are going to facilitate, but the real wisdom is going to come from someone named Marcus Borg, who some of you may have read before. And we're really hoping this is something for people of all ages, for families. So we've got a simple dinner planned where you can come and get, mostly I think it's just going to be soup and salad, that kind of thing. And pretty quickly then we'll have the kids go off and do a program of their own that Sandy is planning. And we will watch about 20 to 30 minutes of a video and then have some discussion around it. And the topics, no small thing. God, Jesus, salvation, good stuff like that. Really looks like wonderful material. I've watched the videos, and I think it'll be a good time for people of all ages, get some intergenerational dialogue going. So we thought we'd mention it here in hopes that you might have a talk with your supper club members about maybe going to one or two of the programs together. You could sit at the same table.
You could sit as a group. It'll be a whole supper club moment.
Exactly.
It'll be great.
Yeah. So if you'll have that discussion, hopefully you'll see this before the 16th when it starts, the Wednesday after Ash Wednesday, and we'll go for 5 Sundays. But you'll see things in the bulletin. So, all right, commercial over.
Okay.
This month, since it is Lent, we thought we were in a reflective mood, I suppose, and got talking about Sabbath and any time where you have a chance to step out of the sometimes chaos.
Normal routine.
Yeah, normal routine of our lives and do some reflection. So, Sabbath, what does it mean?
Sabbath.
Yeah.
Sabbath. So Sabbath, we've actually at Montview looked at Sabbath before. We did a couple summers ago. We had a book, and at the women's retreat just last weekend, we talked about Sabbath, and that was sort of in my head as well. And I think it's really a wonderful insight, so I wanted to share that with all of you and sort of broaden it out a little bit. The Ten Commandments, of course, is where Sabbath begins. It's the 5th of the Ten Commandments, and as you remember, the Ten Commandments come out of that context of the nation of Israel, being enslaved in Egypt and having lived under taskmasters, and now all of a sudden facing freedom life of kind of a Lord of the Flies moment of, gosh, we're out here, we've got to figure out how to live with each other, how to make things happen. So the Ten Commandments are given to Moses to give to the people as a life-giving guide of how to hold the boundaries of life together in place. And the first 3 are about how an individual and how the nation looks to God, as God is the only God, the God not ever making a replica of God. You can't make a replica yourself, and certainly not using God's name for a use that it should not be used for. Those are the first 3. The last 5 commandments are about neighbors, about how we treat each other, about honoring treaties, about don't take another's life, don't take another's property, don't bear witness, honor your parents.
Take another's wife.
Don't take another's wife, or husband, for that matter. So those are about our relationships with each other. And it's almost as though God, or the author of the commandments, as we believe God is, sort of pushed the reset button and went back to the middle and said, I better remind them that in order to do all these things, to keep God, a relationship with God, to keep good relationship, you need to have a reset every once in a while. And that is really what Sabbath is. It's a time to stop doing all of the production. They were making bricks in Egypt, and the taskmaster was on them all the time to keep producing. And so Sabbath is a radical move to just say, stop doing what you're doing. And we in our society certainly understand what that's about.
Yeah. Walter Brueggemann, an Old Testament scholar, has been especially helpful in shifting that metaphor of Egypt to say this is still going on. The whole model of production and consumption keeps us enslaved to an ongoing production that never stops. And so I think a lot of us find it difficult to stop even if we wanted to.
And that our self-worth is so consumed with and so tied up with what we do that stopping feels like, well, then who are we?
Right. So there's external forces, because there are real, if you stop, there are real consequences. There are expectations that others may have, either in your family or at work. So it's helpful to think about what are the real consequences if I were to stop. And then there's, as you're pointing out, maybe more powerful for most of us are the internal consequences, the voices that rise up that ask, as I like to say it, the first question is, or the first thing that comes to your mind is, there's no way things are going to work.
Be okay
without me, right? And then the second question, or the thing that hits you is, oh my God, what if things are okay without me?
That might be even more of a dreadful
That's
question.
More frightening.
That's more frightening.
Yeah. Brings up really deep concerns for us about our value, our sense of self-worth, our sense of being lovable to others, our connection to others when we just stop. And so as you contemplate stopping, be aware of those kinds of issues that might be coming up for you.
So then the question can be asked, why should we stop? It's interesting, in creation itself, if you think back again to Genesis, creation happened in 6 days. On the seventh day, God rested. And actually, in the book of Genesis, there are a couple of times when the word for life or soul, the totality of a person, the life force of a person, the Hebrew word is nephesh. In Latin, it's the word anima that we know. But in Genesis, it basically says that God rested on the seventh day and was refreshed, was re-nephished. In other words, God got God's life force back. So if it's good enough for God to stop, in the scheme of creation, it meant that God trusted creation enough to let creation keep going while God rested, so that God could get God's life force back and continue to create. And that's a model for us. That's the reason for Sabbath, is to be able to reconnect with our own souls, with our own life force, about what's most important and what maybe isn't as important, to make space for reflection about God, about ourselves, about each other, my place in community. So that's why.
There's an aspect of Sabbath that I've always loved. It seems to me the wisdom of Sabbath says this stopping and this stepping out is not to enhance your self-improvement project of you.
It's not an ego move.
Yeah,
it's not a move of the ego.
Opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's a letting go of your story and your stuff and all of that to look around a bit. Say, what's God doing?
Right.
What's the world? It will go on without me.
Yeah, I am not actually the center of the universe.
Yeah,
I always hate that.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so questions.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to go first?
So one question might be, what are the external things that keep you from being able to take Sabbath? What do you conceive in your mind are the things that stop you from being able to do that?
Right. And just as powerfully, what are the internal things? What are some of those messages that maybe you've already heard before when you've contemplated taking a break, and very quickly, what came up for you? Share some of those ideas.
And then maybe to share what really does refresh you. How do you get re-nephished? How do you get your life force and your spirit? Sort of sounds like Star Wars too, life force. How do you get your spirit back? What are the things that feed you?
What feeds you?
Oh, man.
I know, I'm going off script here.
Yeah, the moon, of course. Actually, looking at the sky and seeing the largeness of what is beyond myself is very restoring for me always, and I just really love the moon. I think I've told you that before. So but it's bigger. It can be done. I can find that in different ways.
Sure.
What about you?
I didn't mean to ask you that. Now I'm stuck answering it. But it makes me think about when I can really get in. When my kids want to play with me, sometimes I've still got half my brain here at Montview, and it's draining. Then it's like, oh, one more thing. But if I can lose myself in that with them, then I find, a half hour later, I'm actually more energized, feel better. Yeah. So there's a letting go of myself in that that's actually very nourishing.
So share those things with one another, and we wish you good Sabbath. Good Sabbath. That's something the Jewish community says a lot. Good Shabbat, good Sabbath.
I like it. All right. Bye.
Thanks.